Hey everyone, I apologize for the bad lighting. I'm still getting everything situated here, but I found probably the quieter area of where I can go live to do this. I know the lighting is bad, but I have this mannequin, and if you've seen the video that either will be up, should be up, or will be up on the perm fail that I did a perm. It was a double rod perm, the oval perm, and it was supposed to give these nice waves. Well, I said in the video that I don't have the right perm solution and I don't have any new mannequins, so it might be a fail. I did the best I could to prevent a fail, and it came out kind of what I was expecting, more of a looser wave, and it could have been a lot better. But because, this is a mannequin, and if you mess up on a mannequin, no big deal. She had a lot of indentations at the regrowth and dents because I didn't have the picks. So that is that. I'm going to take this mannequin and I'm going to make her red. So she's already been colored. The perm did obviously mess up with the color. So I went back in there. I put it was an MEA-free toner to make her kind of like a nice goldenish color. And it ended up being more of an ash, which I figured would happen because she is very overprocessed. Well, anyhow, I have a whole bunch of excess color that I have no one to use it on because it's been discontinued. So I'm using the one and only Argon 4NR, which is natural red. It's actually very similar to Clairol's color. And I'm going to be a little bit more creative here because I want more of a solid look. I'm going to go and I'm going to mix it into 1-to-1 ratio instead of their recommendation of a 1-to-2 ratio. So you get 3 ounces per tube. I'm going to go ahead and mix. And if anyone has any questions, just comment down below. And it's hard to see this, but the color, it's really interesting because you'll be putting a color out of the tube and half the tube seems light and the other half seems dark. So it makes me wonder if this type of color had any issues with colors being inconsistent or pigmentation issues. I know when it comes to hair color, pigment is the number one, it's the number one cost, and that's why companies will try to cut costs by not getting good pigment, but in the end it ends up biting them in the rear, or not, because sometimes, like even for professional color, I can honestly say that having worked for L'Oreal briefly, L'Oreal is whatever is in the store is not as good as the L'Oreal that you get at the drugstore because of pigment. They actually put more money towards drugstore hair products than they do for professionals. I totally got to invest in another hair color whisk because this is such a pain. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm using 10 volume. I'm going to start at the root, and I'm going to do the roots first because the roots are far less porous than the ends. The ends have been lightened. They've been treated with a high lift hair color. So the reason why I'm using 10 volume too is 10 volume is just a deposit color. I'm not looking for a whole bunch of lift because we are looking to go darker. But my theory is because this mannequin is so porous, the ends are going to take a lot dull and drabber as opposed to being more warm, because typically a lot of times neutral colors, even though it says neutral and neutral is not a tone, they tend to be pigmented a lot greener or a lot more ashen. Oh, thank you, Echo. Yeah, I do apologize. A lot has been going on. I'll have to make a video of that. Also, I've been dealing with something else. So a lot of other creators, if they use different software, I can tell you this, that if you're uploading from either, I believe, Mac, or you're uploading from Windows, they changed the system. So on any of those platforms, you once were able to upload directly to YouTube, and now they changed it. So they made it like a two-step process. So it makes it like 10 times more difficult. So I figured if I can continue to go live, answer some questions, I will. I have about, not even kidding, 6 months or so worth of questions to answer. Some of them I was periodically able to answer in between, but I'm going to have to go back and just check because it's a lot when you're a one-man show. But I genuinely appreciate each and every one of my viewers, and I appreciate all the questions. Just know that I value each and every one of you. I never got into uploading to become famous or anything. I just did it for education because I saw a huge, big lack in education. I've actually turned down an offer. I think it was from like Wella or something. They wanted me to be part of their team. And I'm just not about that because I've seen so many good educators. Just, you know, they changed, and I didn't want to become like that. Because it doesn't matter what brand you're using. You could be using drugstore brand, you could be using Sally Beauty Supply brand, or an off brand. All hair color works the same. What's different is the pigment. And here's the funny thing. I see a lot of mishaps and mistakes when people are doing hair color. 10 volume is literally the shamed, I call it the shamed family member of developers. There's another word I can use, but I don't want to get a violation for foul language. But yeah, 10 volume is the shamed family member of developers for some odd reason. And I noticed this change happened around 2010 because I've been doing hair since about 2009. Unofficially, always, you know, had fun doing my own. My mom, who's a hairdresser, taught me a lot about hair cutting and a little bit of barbering. Well, back then we didn't have, well, we did have demi-color, but demi-color was not as big as it is now. So what I've seen was this, 2009, 2010 was, they would tell you if you're using Redken, because I trained at Redken, use 10 volume developer of the same shade, and you would use 10. So like, let's say, you know, you got a client, she was using a 5R hair color. You typically would use 10 volume and the same shade, or they would, some artists tell you, do a shade or two lighter and run it through the ends if you need to for no more than 10 minutes or so, because 10 volume just deposits. Well, what they then said was, oh, use our demi-color and dilute it a shade lighter with the clear. Here's why that doesn't work. Demi-color is made to fade, and as a forensic psychologist, because we don't study law, but we study the legal system. We look at lawsuits, product injuries, things like that, psychological damage. One of the interesting things is the chemical that's used in ammonia-free hair color. People market it as natural, organic free. They usually get some very beautiful models with naturally curly hair flowing in the wind on the beach. And they sell it as, oh, this is powered by bark and leaves and like all these other, you know, natural ingredients. But what they don't tell you is that chemical is actually horrific for the hair. It's used to etch steel. So you put that chemical on someone's scalp, it can actually irritate the heck out of the scalp. And that same chemical is used in demi colors. Demi permanent colors are either made with monoethylamine or dissolved ammonium compounds. Some hair color, you can make the one tube work like a demi by just adding a different developer to it, or usually like 5 volume where you dilute it. I typically tend to use colors like that because you know what you're getting, you know it's going to be consistent, and you don't get any added damage that you would while using a demi. So Echo B says, off topic, but would you ever make videos on your master's degree? I think that would be very interesting. Echo, of course. I would love to do something like that. I'm actually looking at maybe, even talking about some of the classes I've done. So I went to school at Walden and I did college online. I'm still working currently on my PhD. It's a fun and, rewarding experience. The downside is because everything going on, a lot of things have been virtual, but I kind of like that because I prefer to do a virtual program. And when you're working towards the back, I see a lot of hairdressers, what they'll do is they'll just smudge on a giant glob of color. Don't do that. Continue to work methodically. Echo B says, I just want to applaud you for continuing your education. That's very admirable. Thank you, Echo. I appreciate it. I'm a lifelong learner and I love it. I met a lot of friends on the way. I, got to travel. I get to learn more about my career and kind of work on my career more because I was figuring, what can I do with cosmetology? And I said, you know what? Why don't I do psychology? Because typically we deal with people. We deal with a lot of people. A lot of the times when you're a hairdresser, you will become someone's therapist. Believe it or not, usually in low-income areas, people go to either a psychic or a hairdresser, and that's typically the person that listens to you. Now, just like a psychologist, it's unethical for them to give advice. As hairdressers, you do not want to give advice. Funny story here, when I'm in the classroom teaching, we cover, employment and hairdressing and everything, and, we talk about soft skills, life skills, how to write a check, stuff like that. When you're a hairdresser, nothing is worse than you have a client that is going on and on about something, either something inappropriate or they're going on about relationship advice. They ask you your advice. I always tell someone that you don't know what to say, or just go, oh, interesting. I don't know what to say about that. Because if you have a client that comes in and says, I don't know, should I leave my spouse or this and that? The worst thing you want to do as a hairdresser is say, oh, go ahead and leave your husband. You'll be much happier. The minute you say something like that, and then something goes south, guess who's to blame? You are. Just a funny little note that always stuck with me because we actually had my very first salon, something like that happened. And needless to say, it did not go over very well for that one stylist. I actually think the stylist left the field because of that. Or the funny thing too is that, like, certain things, I always come from a different school of thought where I'm, very, I believe in boundaries. And I think that as hairdressers, what happened is that so many people are now trying to get hairdressers to act like social workers, and we're not. And that's a problem because that's when you start to get in the dangerous area of boundary violations. And when you enter boundary violations, no good can come out of it. All right, so she is completely covered from root to end. Her roots are done. What I am going to do, or her regrowth is done. What I'm going to do is now I'm going to go back. I'm going to add a little bit more developer because this color was supposed to be a 1-to-1 ratio. So, it was a 1-to-2 ratio, so I mixed like a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm now going to go back and add just a little bit of developer. That way, Echo says, I agree. My hairstylist listens so much to my personal life, but I feel good about my hair and feel better after all my venting. Yes, Echo, I can't tell you this. Hairdressers, there's a funny meme going around, and I can't agree more with it. And it says something like that a hairdresser is a lot cheaper than a therapist, and that is so true. And believe it or not, one thing, because I did a video on it on social work versus hair psychology. And it's funny because a lot of hairdressers will usually go for social work, but here's the problem. Social work is not the same as psychology. There's a lot of differences. And a lot of the times social workers, no disrespect to them, but they tend to lack the clinical training. There is a certification called the Licensed Clinical Social Worker, but it's not held to the same regard as a LPC is or a clinical psychologist is, because we're trained to do certain testing. And typically, state law varies, but social workers are usually limited in their scope of practice compared to what a psychologist would be. It may be a little bit easier, though, to start your career as a social worker, but know that the jobs are usually entry-level jobs, and they're not the most pleasant. Now, when you're doing the ends, what I always tell everyone is to make sure that you use your hand and just kind of cup it like this and paint on your hand, because a lot of people will tend to try to go like that, and that makes such a mess and gets color everywhere. You'll notice that still, even at Sally Beauty Supply, they tend to sell a lot of liquid color or liquid color, and that's actually getting phased out, because a lot of the times liquid color is more old school, and it tends to make such a mess, and mixing is very difficult. And the shelf life, believe it or not, is not as stable when it's liquid as opposed to cream color. Also, because this mannequin is permed, it'll be interesting to see how this works because typically permed hair is more porous. There's more holes in the hair. So anytime you have a chemical texture service, whether it be a perm and especially a relaxer, the hair tends to be more compromised, and it might cause the 10 volume to work more like a 20 or so because the cuticle is lifted. So there can be more lifting action. Because the reality, even with natural hair on certain hair types, a 10 volume may work more like a 5 volume and the color tends to wash out. On others, it works like a 10 volume, it deposits. And on some hair types, that you might get some lifting action. So you never know. Echo B says, any videos on how to curl hair beach waves if possible? Echo, I can actually make one for you. Thank you for that suggestion. That could be a video on how to use a curling wand. I will definitely do that for you. Yeah, beach waves are a trend. I'm also doing, because the one coming up is going to be on like the beach wave perm, which is, it's great for clients that are looking for something that's like a wash and go style. So I will definitely do that for you. Beach waves are so nice. It's like so easy to do, and it's like a style that's been in style for a while now because many people are they live high stress lives. You're working, or some jobs. If you're able to do a fully online job, which is so awesome, you just want maybe to look a little bit presentable. You're not going to spend a lot of time doing something crazy. So I am out of color. I'm actually going to go and look to see if I can find some more. But anyhow, I'm going to go process this, and then I'm going to come back in 45 minutes when it's all done, dry, and styled, and I'll go live again from my phone to upload, and then that will be that. So thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see everyone soon. So a huge shout out to Echo B. You are awesome. Thank you for all of your awesome questions, and I will definitely take some of your requests. I'll make them a reality. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and I'll see you soon.